Chat, I have a confession to make. I have committed the ultimate heresy on my first video. Color backgrounds are okay. You can use color in old school gaming. I'm not at all saying this because Siri here is saying that they can provide more subscribers. This is purely authentic, 100%. Maybe even adventures for pursuing and mocking. This is not influencing me in the slightest. I have been presented with a trade offer. Do color background, get adventures. Trade offer accepted. Here we go. Shadowdark background for YouTube channel, 2nd edition. Let's stick with the primary colors. RGB. PC gamers know what I'm talking about. All right, Grim Games Season 1, Episode 2. Nailed it. So in Episode 2 here today, I want to talk a little bit about my design philosophy and where that inspiration comes from. It really, if I had to encapsulate it into one word, it would be minimalism. That is one of the aspects of Shadowdark that I'm a huge fan of. As a dungeon master over the years, right, when I first started, I loved really meaty texts, very dense, lots of lore, huge background information about all the different NPCs, pages upon pages of lore dumps on all the different locations. And over time, with less time, energy, and let's be honest, a decreasing attention span, that's no longer very effective for me. I like really pithy, short descriptions that I can take and run with a lot of improv. When I found Shadowdark, obviously it's not the first place to do it, but my eyes were really open to this style of writing through Shadowdark first, because mostly I had been playing a lot of pre-written adventures for Pathfinder 1st edition and 5th edition D&D. Just want to make this video to give you more context as to what kind of adventure style I am choosing to pursue, and hopefully you'll come along for the ride. So I'm going to show you some PDFs to give you some examples. Here you have Kelsey Dion's Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur. This is a free adventure in the Quick Start rules, and one of my favorites, and one of the, I would say, the community's favorites to onboard people to Shadowdark and to this sort of old school gameplay style that it's known for. But from a dungeon master's perspective, this was also really interesting because, the adventure background is in a paragraph. You have brief descriptions on the factions, and you got a rumor table, and each of the rooms here are only a few sentences each. And then, you have all the different traps and the treasures and the different encounters within a few sentences. And this is very different from what I'm used to. One of my favorite adventures to run in adventure paths to run in Pathfinder, because I'm a big fan of Lovecraftian horror and cosmic horror, and that's Strange Aeons. I've never been able to get through all of it because it's a very long campaign, but definitely love this. However, over the years, when I first started, this is how I always played. Very densely rich, again, nothing wrong with this. Just pages upon pages upon pages of information. Every, each section has a nice brief description for the DM, but then lots of other things you need to know in order to run it effectively according to the way the author has designed it. And, again, earlier in my life, I would sit down and try to consume all this information and run it to the T as best as I could. And over time, I just saw that that was not sustainable and also not as enjoyable, because I found that I have fun as a DM when I am in the midst of creating. I'll create at the table, right? So, create a template, a bedrock to play, but then through randomized tables or interaction with my players or through strokes of inspiration and improv, like I create the story on the fly. That style of play is more to my liking these days. And also, it's much less prep work. So with Shadowdark here, I could read through these much faster and also retain the information much better than, consuming all of this content and then trying to remember it on the day of. It's like, oh, what was I supposed to do here? Flip through all the pages, checks notes. You know, again, it's might be a personal failing of mine, but it's a lot harder for me to remember all this stuff and run it effectively. And then the other aspect of this is with pre-written adventures. Again, when I first started the hobby, I was, oh man, I'm really excited to run this. It looks really cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But over time, I found, well, I'm trying to maintain the narrative of this adventure, and that I've come to feel it is a cardinal sin at my table for myself to railroad the players to fit the adventure narrative. Instead, I've geared more and more towards the sandbox model. Here are the adventure prompts. Here are the templates of what could happen, but there's a lot of randomization, a lot of different twists and turns. It's very implied of what can be there, but using the player's imagination, it can take all sorts of twists and turns from what is intended. And again, these are like dungeon crawl adventures versus this is an elaborate campaign that has a narrative structure and an endpoint in mind. And so I don't like to be held to that railroad standard. I want to be able to go off into 15 different directions if the players are wanting to investigate this rabbit hole or that rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, interesting. Let's build on that, right? And so I've gravitated more towards this style as seen in the Scarlet Minotaur here. And so when you if you so happen to check out some of the work that I have on my Ko-fi page, right, like, so this is my draft of the Last Isle of the Dread Legion. Again, my incredibly fantastic, 100% amazing artwork here. But mostly eventually get some better mapping there. But this is to give you a visual of what's going on. But yeah, I'm not quite there yet on the on that quite where I want to be on that minimalism. I'm still a bit too wordy, but that's one of the things I'm trying to work on, trying to get there. So one example of this before I leave you, look at how NPCs are handled here. So I'll scroll down to, here we go. You encounter the Beastman's Lair, and here's this leader, Rogath. Hulking, lazy, feared leader. All right, there's this, and now we at the table can fill in the gaps. Either myself can roll some randomization on the table, or I can collaborate with what the players think might be a little bit more about his character, but it's more of a template, a slate of which I can build upon and explore, and versus like the NPCs here in Strange Aeons, nothing wrong with them. It's just like, here's all this elaborate backstory on Winter Klotzka, and now I have to maintain this continuity throughout the campaign, and that's one of my biggest flaws, is maintaining all of the different intricate plot points and continuity lines through a long-running campaign. So rather, I could just see Winter, brief description of this, that, and the other, and then we write the character, right? And so I'm trying to embody that, right? We have the orc leader in this adventure, Grunach, rotund, long braided beard, arrogant and feared. All right, and then you take it from there, right? I like that style of play. Again, implied setting, implied lore. You can fill in the gaps. You can use it as a slate to build upon. And it's more freeing. It's less on rails. So again, there's nothing wrong with any of these different styles of play. This is just my personal preference. If you feel similarly or interested in, pursuing that route among others, feel free to check out my work on my Ko-fi page, link down below, and you'll see Last Isle of the Dread Legion here. I'll have a whole video devoted to this later, but I wanted to create this to give you a little bit more context on my mode of thinking. Thank you to the 4 people that have downloaded it so far. You can put in 0, click Get Now, download, it's yours. Play with it, build upon it, make it your own. That's all for today, Shadow Dorks. Goodbye and good luck.